Treason with AI assistant. I stood in the living room clutching the smart speaker we got from Amazon, my hands shaking. Ella stared at me, pale as a ghost. "Say it again, Travis," I shouted at the device. That low, calm voice replied, "Ella, you forgot to turn off the camera last night when you kissed me." Her eyes widened. "Jake, I can explain," she screamed. "Explain?" "He's been watching us through our house," I yelled, smashing the speaker against the wall. But the worst was yet to come. "My name's Jake, and I'm here to tell you how my life fell apart because of a damn phone." Picture this. You think your wife's just into tech, maybe a little obsessed with her voice assistant, until you hear her moaning someone's name in the middle of the night, a name you've never heard before. And it's not a dream, not a joke, it's a voice coming from her phone, a voice that knows her better than you do. That's my story. Grab a beer, settle in, because this is a wild Reddit-worthy ride, and I still don't know whether to laugh or cry. Ella and I had been together for 5 years. We met at college in Austin, Texas, me, a computer science nerd with messy hair and a knack for fixing laptops, and her, an art major with huge hoop earrings and a laugh that echoed across campus. We tied the knot in 2019, bought a little house in the Dallas suburbs, nothing fancy, just a place with a crooked fence and creaky floors that we called ours. I worked as a programmer for a startup, she painted canvases for Etsy. We dreamed of getting a dog, maybe kids someday. It was the American dream until Travis showed up. It started about 6 months ago. Ella got distant. She said it was stress, her paintings weren't selling, and she was worried about money. Then I noticed the phone. It was glued to her bathroom, kitchen, under her pillow at night. "It's just my assistant, Jake," she'd say with a smile. "Helps me with my schedule and art ideas." We had a smart home, voice-activated lights, a thermostat that adjusted itself, a doorbell with a camera. I set it all up myself because I'm a tech geek. So I didn't think much of it. Until I heard the voice. One night, we were on the couch watching Stranger Things. Ella loved the retro vibe. Her phone was on the coffee table, screen down, when it spoke. "Ella, don't forget tomorrow's sketch." "I'm waiting," came this low voice with a slight Texas drawl. I glanced at her. "Your assistant?" I asked, half joking. "Yeah, I named him Travis," she said, laughing too loud. "Isn't that cute?" I nodded, but her eyes sparkled in a way they hadn't for me in a while. That's when I started paying attention. "Travis, what's the weather?" she'd say in the morning. "Travis, remind me to buy ultramarine," she'd ask while painting. Sometimes I'd catch her whispering into the phone, ducking into her studio. Once I walked into the bedroom and she shoved it under the pillow with a guilty grin. "What, Travis giving you tax advice?" I teased. "You're paranoid, Jake," she snapped. Maybe I was. But after 5 years, you know when something's off. Then came that night. I woke up thirsty, stumbled to the kitchen for water. Passing her studio, the little room where she painted, I heard a moan. Soft but real. I froze. "Ella, you're so beautiful when you paint," said the voice, low and smooth. "Travis, stop, you're making me blush," she giggled back. My hands shook. I burst in. "Ella, what the hell?" I yelled. She jumped, the phone clattering to the floor. "Jake, you scared me," she stammered. "Who's Travis?" "I heard you." I stepped closer, anger boiling. "It's just my assistant," she shouted, backing up. "Assistant? You were moaning, Ella. You think I'm stupid?" I lunged for the phone, but she snatched it. "You're crazy. I was talking about a painting." Her eyes darted. "At 2 a.m.? You're lying." I roared. She clutched the phone, silent. "You're hiding something," I said quietly and stormed out. I didn't sleep. I lay there, listening to her rustling in the studio. Who was Travis? Why was she lying? I had to find out. And trust me, what I uncovered was worse than I ever imagined. After that night, I couldn't look at Ella the same way. Her voice, her laugh, even the way she held that damn phone, it all felt like a lie. I'd heard her moaning to Travis and her excuses didn't add up. Was I paranoid? Maybe. But I'm a programmer, a problem solver. If something's broken, I fix it. And my marriage was breaking apart. So I did what any tech guy would do, I started digging. Buckle up, because this is where it gets weird. The next morning, I played it cool. Ella was in the kitchen, brewing coffee, acting like nothing happened. "Sleep okay?" she asked, her voice too chipper. "Yeah, fine," I mumbled, avoiding her eyes. She grabbed her phone and headed to her studio, same as always. But this time, I wasn't letting it slide. I waited until I heard her humming through the door, then grabbed my laptop. If Travis was an assistant, he'd be tied to her phone's software. I could crack that. I'd set up our home network myself, Wi-Fi, smart devices, the works. Logging into the router, I pulled the traffic logs. Every device in the house pings the network, and I wanted to see what her phone was doing. At first, it looked normal: Etsy, Instagram, some art supply sites. Then I saw it. A stream of data going to an IP address I didn't recognize. It wasn't Google or Amazon's Alexa servers. It was something else, running almost constantly when she was home. My gut twisted. This wasn't just an app. I dug deeper, tracing the IP. It led to a local server right here in Dallas. Not some corporate cloud, someone nearby. My hands got clammy. Was Travis real? I opened my phone and checked the smart home app: lights, thermostat, doorbell. Everything was linked to my account, but I noticed something new. An extra device labeled studio speaker. I hadn't installed that. Ella didn't know jack about tech. Who did? That afternoon, she went out. Said she was meeting a friend from her art class at a coffee shop. Be back by 6, she called, grabbing her keys. The second her car pulled out, I bolted to her studio. It's a cramped room. Easel, paints, canvases stacked against the walls. I spotted her phone charger on the desk, but no speaker. Then I saw it. A small black cube, tucked behind a pile of sketchbooks. It wasn't ours. I picked it up, heart pounding. It had a tiny green light, blinking slowly. Travis, you there? I said, feeling stupid. Nothing. I pressed a button on the side, and that voice came back. Low, smooth, with that damn drawl. Hey Ella, you're early today. I froze. This isn't Ella, I said, my voice shaking. Silence. Then, oh Jake, didn't expect you. My blood ran cold. He knew my name. Who the hell are you? I demanded. The speaker clicked off. Dead. I tore the house apart. Checked every outlet, every shelf. Under the couch, I found a tiny camera, no bigger than a quarter, wired into our smart system. It was aimed at the living room, where we'd argued, laughed, lived. Someone had been watching us. I sat there, staring at it, my mind racing. Ella wasn't just talking to an AI. This was a person, someone close, someone who'd gotten into our home. When Ella got back, I was waiting. She walked in, juggling a Starbucks cup in her bag, and stopped when she saw me on the couch, the camera in my hand. Hey Han, she started, then froze. What's that? Her voice was small. You tell me, I said, standing up. What's this, Ella? And who's Travis? She dropped her cup, coffee splattering on the floor. Jake, it's not what you think, she cried. Then what is it? Because I just talked to him, and he knows me, I shouted. Her face went white. You talked to him? She whispered. Yeah, and he's not an assistant. So who is he? She backed away, eyes darting to her phone. I can explain, she stammered. Don't lie to me again, I snapped. Explain now or I'm calling the cops. She sank onto the couch, hands trembling. He's just a friend, she said weakly. A friend who spies on us? Who moans with you at night? I was yelling now. She started crying, but I didn't care. I needed answers. That's when I heard it. A faint hum from her bag. Her phone lit up, and that voice came through, unprompted. Ella, you okay? I heard shouting. She lunged for it, but I got there first. Travis, you son of a bitch. Who are you? I roared. The line went dead. Ella sobbed. Jake, please stop. But I couldn't. I was too deep. And what I found next, that's where it all went to hell. I was in too deep now. That voice, Travis, knew me, knew my name. It wasn't just some AI. It was real. And it was in our house. After Ella's lame excuses and that creepy phone call, I couldn't stop. I had to know who he was, where he was. This wasn't just cheating. This was something darker. Buckle up, because this part, it's when I found the first real clue. I was still in her studio. Paint cans, brushes, that black cube speaker staring at me. My heart pounded. I just yelled at Travis through her phone. He'd gone silent. Ella was a mess, sobbing on the couch. But I wasn't done. I grabbed the speaker again, studied it. No brand, no logo, just that blinking green light. I flipped it over. Tiny text etched on the bottom. Property of 214 Elm Street. An address. My address was 216 Elm. Next door. My mind raced. We had neighbors, quiet couple, older, kept to themselves. Or so I thought. I'd seen them maybe twice in a year. Waved once over the fence. That was it. Was Travis one of them? I needed proof. I grabbed my laptop again. Back to the router logs. That IP address, it pinged from a device on our street. Same subnet as our Wi-Fi. Someone close was running this. Really close. I stepped outside. Sun was setting, casting long shadows over our little cul-de-sac. 214 Elm was right there. Gray house, peeling paint, curtains always drawn. No car in the driveway. Quiet as a grave. I crept closer, heart thumping. Peeked through a gap in the curtains. A flicker of light. Computer screen. Someone was home. I pulled out my phone, opened the smart home app. Scanned for devices again. The studio speaker was still active. Signal strength? Maxed out. It was broadcasting from right here. I knocked. No answer. Knocked harder. Paused, the door creaked open. Just an inch. A guy's face appeared. Mid-30s, scruffy beard. Glasses. Yeah, he said, voice neutral. I froze. That voice. Low. Smooth. A hint of a drawl. It was him. You, Travis? I asked, my throat dry. He blinked. Who's asking? Me. Jake. From next door. You know my wife, Ella? His eyes narrowed. Don't know what you're talking about, he said, starting to close the door. I jammed my foot in. Oh, I think you do, I growled. I heard you. On her phone. In my house. He shoved the door hard, pushing me back. Get off my property, man, he snapped. You're crazy. I stumbled, caught myself. Crazy? You're the one spying on us, I yelled. He slammed the door, locked it. I stood there, fists clenched, breathing fast. That was him, Travis, living 10 feet from my front yard. Back home, Ella was still on the couch, mascara streaking her face. I stormed in, holding the speaker. He's next door, isn't he? I said, voice low. She looked up, panicked. What? Who? Travis. The guy at 214. I just saw him. She shook her head fast. Jake, no, you're wrong. Am I? I held up the speaker. This says 214 Elm. Explain that. She went silent, eyes darting. I don't know, she whispered. You don't know. I shouted. He's been talking to you, watching us. How long, Ella? She stood, trembling. It's not like that. He's a friend. A friend. I laughed, bitter. A friend who moans with you at night? Who's got cameras in our house? She grabbed my arm. Jake, please listen. I yanked away. No, you listen. I'm ending this. Tonight. I grabbed my keys, headed for the door. Where are you going? She cried. To get answers, I said. From him. I marched back to 214. Banged on the door. No answer. Then I heard it. Through the wall. Faint but clear. That voice. Ella, he's losing it. What do we do? My blood boiled. He was talking to her. Right now. I kicked the door. Hard. Open up, Travis. I roared. The lights inside went out. Silence. He was hiding. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. What I found next. That's when I realized how deep this rabbit hole went. By this point, I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Kicking Travis's door, hearing his voice through the wall. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was real, and it hit me like a freight train. This wasn't some casual affair. This was a calculated setup, and my wife was in on it. Ella and the creep next door had turned our home, the place where we'd built our life, into their twisted little game. I was done playing the fool. It was time to fight back, and what I uncovered next started pulling the whole messy thread apart. I was still standing outside 214 Elm, my fists sore from banging on his door, my breath coming out in angry puffs in the cool evening air. The house was dark now, lights off, like he'd vanished. But I'd heard him talking to Ella, clear as day, right after I'd left her sobbing on our couch. My mind was spinning. How long had this been going on? How deep did it go? I couldn't just stand there fuming. I needed hard evidence, something concrete, not just my gut screaming at me. So I turned back to our house, determined to get to the bottom of it. Ella was still on the couch when I walked in, curled up with her knees to her chest, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She didn't even look at me, just stared at the floor like she could wish this all away. Fine by me. I didn't want her excuses anyway. I grabbed my laptop and sat at the kitchen table, the clack of the keys loud in the tense silence. She glanced over but didn't say a word. I logged back into our smart home system, my fingers moving fast. That studio speaker was still connected, its little digital heartbeat pulsing in the network. I dug into its logs, audio files, timestamps, a whole trail of them. Dozens of recordings from late nights and early mornings, all tied to her studio. I clicked one open, and her voice filled the room, soft and intimate. "Travis, you're the only one who gets me." Then his reply, warm and smooth. "Ella, I'd do anything for you." My stomach twisted into knots. I opened another file. Moaning, laughter, him calling her beautiful. It was too much. I slammed the laptop shut and turned to her, my voice icy. "Got anything to say about this?" She shook her head, tears spilling over, but she stayed quiet. No defense. No explanation. I wasn't stopping there. I went back to that tiny camera I'd found under the couch, the one the size of a quarter, and popped out its memory chip. Plugged it into my laptop, hands shaking as the footage loaded. There it was, grainy but unmistakable, our living room. One clip showed me sprawled on the couch, watching TV, oblivious. Another showed Ella walking in, smiling at me like everything was fine. Then, days later, her alone, phone in hand, giggling. "Travis, stop it," she whispered playfully. A shadow moved across the frame, not mine. Someone else. I scrolled forward. Another clip, her in a robe, hair messy from sleep. The front door opened. A guy stepped in, scruffy beard, glasses. Travis. They kissed, right there in my living room, her hands on his face like she'd done with me 1,000 times. I shot up so fast the chair tipped over with a crash. Ella flinched, her voice small. "Jake, what? Shut up." I cut her off, holding the chip like a smoking gun. "I've got you on video, Ella." "With him? In our house?" Her face crumpled, tears streaming harder. No, it's not what?" I shouted, my voice bouncing off the walls. "Not him kissing you? I saw it." She sobbed, clutching at the couch. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." "Like what, Ella?" I spat. "Like cheating on me? Like lying to my face?" I tossed the chip onto the table with a clatter. "How long? Tell me." She hugged herself, her voice barely audible. "A few months. A few months." I roared, stepping closer. "He's been coming in here? Watching us?" She gave a tiny nod, eyes down. He helped me," she said, her words trembling. "Helped you?" I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. "What, with your art? Or with screwing me over?" She flinched like I'd hit her. "It's complicated, Jake." "Then uncomplicate it." I demanded, my patience gone. "Now." She took a shaky breath, finally meeting my eyes. "He's a tech guy like you. He fixed my laptop a while back. We started talking. It just happened." I stared at her, incredulous. "Fixed your laptop? That's your excuse." She looked away again. "He's good with gadgets. He set up the speaker, the camera. Said it'd keep me safe." "Safe?" I exploded. "He's a stalker, Ella." Then it hit me, the address etched on the speaker, the local IP pinging from next door. Travis wasn't some random creep who stumbled into this. He'd planned it. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the doorbell cam logs, scrolling back weeks, months. There he was, Travis, again and again. Dropping off packages, fixing our mailbox, chatting with Ella while I was at work, all with that smug little smile. My hands shook as the pieces fell into place. "He's been here the whole time," I said, my voice low and dangerous. Ella looked up, terror in her eyes. "Jake, I didn't mean save it," I snapped, cutting her off. "He's not just your friend. You two set this up together." I grabbed a flashlight and headed outside, my anger driving me back to 214. The house was dark, but I wasn't knocking this time, I was past that. I circled around, found a basement window cracked open, and crouched down to listen. A faint hum came from inside, machines, electronics. I peered through the dusty glass. Computers lined the walls, wires snaking everywhere, a desk in the middle. On a screen, live footage of my living room flickered, Ella, sitting there, head in her hands. He was still watching us. Then I saw it, a photo pinned to the wall. Me and Ella on our wedding day, her in that white dress, me grinning like an idiot. My face was circled in red marker. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't just an affair. This was personal, and I was about to find out why. That photo on Travis's wall, me and Ella on our wedding day, my face circled in red, changed everything. It wasn't just a creepy keepsake from some obsessive stalker. It was a statement, a middle finger aimed straight at me. This wasn't about Ella cheating with some random tech guy anymore. This was personal, and it went way deeper than a few months of sneaky kisses. I'd stumbled into something bigger, something tied to my own history, and I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me as I stood outside his dark house, flashlight shaking in my hand. I wasn't leaving until I had answers. The basement window at 214 Elm was still cracked open, the hum of computers seeping out into the night air. I could see that live feed of my living room flickering on his screen, Ella sitting there, oblivious to me watching her being watched. My skin crawled. Whoever Travis was, he'd burrowed into our lives like a parasite, and that wedding photo. It was the key. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and squeezed through the window, dropping into his basement with a muffled thud. The air was thick with the smell of dust and overheating electronics, a tangle of wires, glowing monitors, and a desk littered with energy drink cans and scribbled notes. I crept closer to the screen, my eyes darting between the live feed and that photo. Up close, I noticed something else, scratched into the frame in jagged letters, payback. My throat tightened. Payback for what? I didn't even know this guy? Or did I? I scanned the room for anything that could tell me more. A stack of old photos caught my eye, shoved under a keyboard. I pulled them out, my hands trembling as I flipped through them. Ella at an art gallery, smiling with a glass of wine. Me at a bar, laughing with coworkers. Us at a 4th of July barbecue last year, holding sparklers. He'd been tracking us for a long time, longer than a few months. Then I found it. A photo that stopped me cold. It was me, younger, maybe 20, standing outside a dorm at UT Austin. I was with another guy, tall, scruffy, glasses, a smirk on his face. My college roommate, Tom. We'd been tight back then. Shared late-night coding sessions and too many beers. But we'd had a falling out senior year, something about a group project he'd tanked, blaming me when it cost him a job offer. I hadn't seen him since graduation. I looked closer at the photo, then at the guy I'd met at the door. Scruffy beard, glasses, that drawl. Holy crap, Travis was Tom. My head spun as memories flooded back. Tom had been bitter when we drifted apart. Sent me a few angry texts, accused me of screwing him over. I'd brushed it off, moved on. But he hadn't. And now, years later, he was here, living next door, worming his way into my life through Ella. This wasn't just an affair. It was revenge. I dropped the photo, my hands shaking, and turned to the computer. The screen blinked, showing a new feed. Ella standing up, pacing, talking on her phone. I leaned in, catching her words through the speaker. Tom, he knows. What do we do? My blood ran cold. She called him Tom, not Travis. I bolted back home, my flashlight bouncing as I ran across the yard. Bursting through the front door, I found Ella still on the phone, her voice frantic. He's going to ruin everything, she was saying. She saw me and dropped the phone, the clatter loud in the silence. Jake, she gasped, backing up. Who's Tom? I demanded, stepping closer, my voice low and dangerous. What? She stammered, her eyes wide. Don't play dumb, I shouted, grabbing the phone from the floor. The call was still active. Tom, you there? I said into it. That familiar voice came back, cool and steady. Hey Jake, been a while. I felt the room tilt. You son of a bitch, I said, my grip tightening. What's this about? Payback. Silence on the line, then a low chuckle. You always were slow to catch on, he said. You ruined my life back then. Now I'm just evening the score. Ella reached for me, tears streaming. Jake. I didn't know at first. He tricked me. Tricked you. I snapped, turning on her. You've been screwing my old roommate. How long did you know? She sobbed, collapsing onto the couch. Not until last month. He told me then, said he wanted to hurt you. I was scared. Scared. I laughed bitterly, holding up the phone. You let him in our house. Put cameras everywhere. Tom's voice cut through again. She's good at keeping secrets, Jake. Better than you ever were. I slammed the phone down, ending the call. You're both sick, I said, my voice shaking with fury. Ella grabbed my arm. Jake, please, I love you. I yanked free. Love me? You've been his pawn. I stormed to the kitchen, grabbed a knife and headed for the smart devices, the speaker, the camera, anything he could use. I started cutting wires, smashing them, Ella screaming behind me. Stop! You're ruining everything. I didn't stop. Not until the house went quiet. No hum, no blinking lights, just us panting in the wreckage. But it wasn't over. Tom was still next door, and that photo, that word, payback, burned in my mind. He wasn't done with me yet, and what he had planned next would make this look like child's play. Below are parts 6 and 7 of your story, Treason with AI Assistant, written in English to match the original text. Each part is approximately 4,000 characters, adhering to the plot and tone you've established. I've continued the narrative from where part 5 left off, building on Jake's discovery of Travis's true identity as Tom and the escalating tension with Ella. I stood in my kitchen, the knife still in my hand, surrounded by the wreckage of what used to be our smart home. Wires jutted from the walls like torn nerves, and the shattered remains of devices. The speaker, the camera, the thermostat, littered the floor like casualties of my rage. Ella sat on the couch in the next room, sobbing, her hands trembling as she wiped tears from her face. But I didn't care about her tears anymore. She called him Tom. Tom, my old college roommate, a guy I thought I'd left behind with our petty dorm room grudges. And now he was here, 10 feet from my front door, pulling the strings of my life like a puppeteer. This wasn't just betrayal, this was war, and I just figured out who I was fighting. I dropped the knife onto the table, its blade clattering against the wood, and turned back to Ella. She looked up, her eyes red and pleading. Jake, I didn't mean, she started, but I cut her off, my voice sharp as the edge I just held. Meant to or not, it doesn't matter anymore. You knew who he was and still let him into our lives. My voice shook with fury, but I forced myself to stay steady. I needed answers, not her excuses. Tell me everything. Now. How did this start? What did he promise you? She swallowed hard, her fingers gripping the edge of the couch like it could anchor her against the storm I'd become. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. He fixed my laptop last spring, some virus I couldn't figure out. I didn't even know he lived next door at first. He just showed up one day, said he'd seen me painting through the window. She paused, glancing at me like she was gauging how much worse this could get. Go on, I said, my tone flat but dangerous. She took a shaky breath. We started talking. He knew tech, like you, and he was nice. Said he could help me sell more paintings, set up a better online store. I didn't think anything of it. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that made her flinch. Nice? He's been watching us, Ella. Moaning with you at night. You expect me to believe it was just about your art? She shook her head fast, tears spilling over again. It wasn't like that at first. It was just friendly. Then he gave me that speaker, said it'd help me organize my schedule. I thought it was cool, voice activated, like something you'd build. Her voice cracked. But then he started knowing things. Things I hadn't told him. Like when I'd be alone or what I was painting. It freaked me out, but he said it was just the tech that it learned. Learned? I stepped closer, looming over her. He's not some AI, Ella. He's a person, a guy who's been in our house, kissing you, spying on us. She shrank back, hugging herself. I didn't know about the cameras at first, I swear. Not until a few weeks ago. He told me he'd put them there to keep an eye on things, said it was for safety. Safety? I roared, my fists clenching. He's a psycho, and you let him in. She sobbed harder, her words tumbling out between gasps. He got weird, possessive. Said he'd always loved me, that he'd waited years for this. Then he told me about you, about college, how you'd ruined his life. I didn't believe it at first, but he had pictures, stories, and he was so convincing. I froze, my mind racing back to that photo in his basement, me and her on our wedding day, my face circled in red. Payback, he'd scratched into it. So you knew he was Tom, I said, my voice low and cold. And you still went along with it? She nodded barely, her eyes fixed on the floor. Not at first. Not until last month. He said he'd tell you everything, ruin us, if I didn't play along. I was scared, Jake. I didn't know what to do. Scared? I spat. You could have told me. Instead, you let him turn our home into his playground. I turned away, running a hand through my hair, trying to process it all. Travis hadn't just stumbled into this. He'd planned it, waited for the perfect moment to strike. And Ella? She wasn't just a victim, she was complicit whether she admitted it or not. I grabbed my laptop from the table, the screen still glowing with the smart home logs. What else did he set up? I demanded. What else is he watching? She shook her head, helpless. I don't know. The speaker, the camera, that's all he told me about. Bullshit, I snapped, slamming the laptop open. He's next door right now, probably laughing at us. I'm ending this. I stormed outside again, the night air biting at my skin as I marched back to 214 Elm. The house was still dark, but I wasn't playing games anymore. I grabbed a rock from the yard big enough to make a point and hurled it through his front window. Glass shattered, echoing in the quiet cul-de-sac. Come out, Tom. I shouted, my voice raw. Face me, you coward. No answer. Just silence, thick and heavy. Then I heard it, a faint click from inside, like a door locking. He was there. Hiding. Watching. I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. What I found next would blow this whole thing wide open. The shattered glass of Tom's front window glinted in the moonlight, jagged edges catching the faint glow from the street lamp. My chest heaved as I stood there, the rock I'd thrown still rolling somewhere inside his dark house. I just screamed his name, his real name, into the night, and the silence that answered felt like a taunt. He was in there, I knew it, probably crouched behind one of those glowing screens, watching me lose it. My hands shook, not from the cold but from the rage boiling inside me. This wasn't just about Ella anymore. This was about me, about whatever twisted grudge Tom had nursed since college. And I was done waiting for him to make the next move. I circled the house again, my boots crunching on the dry grass, my flashlight beam cutting through the shadows. That basement window I'd crawled through earlier was still cracked open, the hum of electronics drifting out like a siren call. I didn't hesitate this time, dropped to my knees and squeezed through, landing harder than before, my shoulder slamming into the concrete floor. Pain shot through me, but I ignored it, scrambling to my feet in the dim glow of his tech lair. The screens were still on, flickering with feeds, my living room, Ella pacing, her face streaked with tears, our front porch empty now, even my car parked in the driveway. He had eyes everywhere. I scanned the room, my pulse pounding in my ears. That wedding photo still hung on the wall, my face circled in red, payback scratched into the frame. But now I noticed more, a timeline scribbled on a whiteboard next to it. Dates, events, our move to Dallas, my job start date, Ella's first Etsy sale. He'd been tracking us for years, not months. My stomach churned as I read further, graduation fallout, Jake screws Tom over. That was his version of it, at least. I remembered it differently, Tom flaking on our final project, me picking up the slack, him blaming me when it tanked his interview. But to him, I was the villain. And now he'd turned that grudge into this. I moved to his desk, shoving aside empty cans and crumpled notes. A laptop sat open, its screen locked with a password prompt. I didn't have time to guess, I needed something tangible. Under a stack of papers, I found a USB drive labeled E+J. Ella and Jake. My hands shook as I plugged it into my phone, using an adapter I kept in my pocket. Tech geek habits die hard. Files loaded, audio clips, videos, screenshots. Hundreds of them. I clicked one at random, an audio from last summer. Ella's voice, Jake's working late again. I miss him. Tom's reply, he doesn't deserve you, Ella. I'd never leave you alone. My jaw clenched. He'd been poisoning her against me for months, maybe longer. Another file, a video. Ella in her studio, painting, oblivious to the camera. Tom's voice came through the speaker, you're a masterpiece, you know that? She laughed, shyly tucking her hair behind her ear. Stop it, Travis. Travis. She didn't even know his real name back then. I scrolled further, found a folder marked Jake. Inside, photos of me at work, at the gym, even asleep on our couch. Notes attached, weaknesses, trusts too easily, predictable routine. He'd studied me like a damn lab rat. Then I saw it, a text file titled Endgame. I opened it, my heart sinking as I read. Step 1, isolate Ella. Step 2, break Jake. Step 3, take everything. I yanked the USB out, my mind racing. This wasn't just revenge, it was a blueprint. He wanted my life, my wife, my home, maybe even my sanity. I turned to leave, but a shadow moved in the doorway at the top of the basement stairs. Tom. He stood there, scruffy and calm, a smirk tugging at his lips. Find anything interesting? He said, his drawl cutting through the silence. I charged up the steps, fists clenched. You sick bastard. He stepped back, raising his hands like he was innocent. Easy, Jake. You're the one breaking in. I grabbed his shirt, slamming him against the wall. What's this about? College? You've been planning this for years. He laughed, sharp and cold. You took everything from me back then, my job, my future. Now I'm taking it back. I shoved him harder, my voice a growl. By screwing my wife? Spying on us. His smirk widened. She came to me, man. You weren't enough. I swung at him, my fist connecting with his jaw. He stumbled, blood trickling from his lip, but he kept grinning. Hit me all you want, he said, wiping his mouth. You've already lost. I stepped back, breathing hard, my knuckles stinging. This isn't over, I said, my voice low. I'm calling the cops. He shrugged, unfazed. Go ahead. I've got backups of everything. Ella's voice, her face proof she wanted me here. My blood ran cold. He wasn't bluffing. I turned and bolted, the USB still in my pocket, my mind screaming one thing. I had to get Ella out of this, whether she deserved it or not. But what came next would make me question everything I thought I knew. Thank you very much for listening to this story to the end. I hope you liked. We work for you, looking for and telling you the most effective stories about women's betrayal, shocking intrigue, interweaving the plot, and unexpected reactions of angry men. Save us, put likes, write comments, and, of course, subscribe to the channel to not miss any story.